Good morning, good afternoon. My hair is crazy. Welcome to another episode of Before Coffee. It is Wacky and Weird Wednesday, and we have all crazy kind of weird stuff and wacky stuff happening in the world to people and people doing weird things for themselves. This is Before Coffee, the father and daughter comprehensive news of planet Earth, where we look up the news 10 to 15 minutes before we start, and then we don't have any caffeine in our bodies. So let's go ahead and check out those headlines. Today on Before Coffee. Woman plunges through hole in Blackpool Pier, landing on the beach below. And Catalonia Independent leader Carles Puigdemont is exiled for 7 years and announces a return to Barcelona on Thursday.
And we have a 19th century shipwreck that is filled with champagne, and Sweden won't let anyone sip.
Scottish exam results turmoil as pupils get blank emails.
And do boneless chicken wings actually have to be boneless? And we explore why there were so many skeletons hidden in Ben Franklin's basement.
Unfinished Zora Neale Hurston novel to be published 65 years after her death.
And it is National Sea Serpent Day, so stay away from those sea serpents for August 7th, 2024 on Before Coffee.
Let's go swimming like sea serpents, and then we can celebrate Sea Serpent Day. Let's all dress up in like reflective things and just and then destroy ships.
Go to Loch Ness.
Ah.
Go to Loch Ness and see if you
Two sea serpents aren't real.
find yourself a serpent.
Well, they were real
Well,
ones,
they are.
I think, but not anymore.
Giant eels are real.
Yeah, that's
Giant
true.
eels are. So giant squid. Giant squid are real. Giant eel might be too, but giant squids are real. So I'll take down the ship.
Speaking of sea
one.
serpents, hopefully you look where you're walking on your next visit to a pier landing, because this horrified woman plunged through a hole in the pier down to the beach below. This is by James Holt on Wales Online. Horrified witnesses, including families with children, rushed to the woman's aid, with one person telling how they heard a thud as she landed feet below the pier. Yeah, you're not exactly expecting that, are you? Witnesses have told how they thought a woman may have died after she plunged through a hole in a pier onto the beach below. The unnamed victim was on Blackpool's Central Pier at about 4:30 p.m. on Tuesday, the 6th of August. When it appears she fell through a section of the walkway. Emergency services rushed to the scene as families and others on the beach went to help her. She was taken to hospital, however the extent of her injuries have not been released. I don't think she died. She landed on the sand. It probably cushioned her fall more than other things. I don't know. I'm not a physicist. Police, fire, and ambulance teams all attended the incident along with specialist beach patrol units. The pier was evacuated. A gaping hole could be seen in the structure following the incident. One dad who was at the beach with his children told the MEN, "I was walking the beach with my kids and I heard a thud and a huge thud next to me nearly on top of my head. A lady plowed to the floor, smashing through the central pier. I was absolutely terrified. I thought she was dead." A Lancashire police spokesperson said, "We have received a report of a woman having fallen through a section of the pier in Blackpool around 4:30 today. The woman had been taken to the hospital with injuries. The pier is currently closed." Blackpool's Central Pier, one of the 3 piers on the resort's famous Golden Mile, the closest to the Blackpool Tower, is a prominent landmark on the skyline and is known for a 100 feet high Ferris wheel. It was built in 1868, but suffered little damage over the years apart from a fire in 1964 and 1973. On both occasions, theater buildings were destroyed. More recently, a fire in 2020 destroyed a fairground ride and damaged a shed on an attraction. But it seems like the pier was doing okay until now, when a hole unluckily fell in. I think they fully fell through a hole. It wasn't just, oh, my leg got stuck. My body was able to fall completely through a section of board. So that is quite worrying. Hopefully it was just a mishap and there hasn't been any tampering with the pier. It's oddly convenient hole. With no segue for that weirdness, let's talk about somebody who has been exiled from Spain deciding, hey, I'm gonna go back to Spain just so I can vote. This is The World with AFP. Still the subject of an arrest warrant in Spain, Mr. Puigdemont wants to attend the vote to elect the president of the Catalan parliament. In front of the camera, in a short video published on Twitter, Carles Puigdemont seems determined. Today, on the 7th of August, the Spanish politician announced that he would return to Catalonia after years of going into exile following attempted secession and referendum. Pro-independence activists want to attend a session for the Catalan parliament scheduled for 10 a.m., during which the deputies will vote to invest a new president. His party, Junts per Catalunya, has called a demonstration to welcome him an hour before this deadline near the Generalitat. In normal democratic conditions, it would be useless for a deputy like me to announce his intentions to attend the session. It would not matter, he said in a video, but we do not live in normal democratic conditions. Carles Puigdemont denounces the arrest warrant that still targets him, despite the adoption on May 30th of an amnesty law in favor of the independentists. True, in July, the Spanish justice system closed the proceedings against him for terrorism, a case opened following the protests that shook Catalonia in 2019 after the convictions of several pro-independence leaders were announced. But Mr. Puigdemont is still the subject of an arrest warrant for the crime of embezzlement, so it has nothing to do with him being an independentist. He was embezzling people. As the Spanish Supreme Court ruled on July 1st, the recent amnesty law, negotiated by the current Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, does not apply to this crime in the case brought against the former President of Parliament of Catalonia. We cannot remain silent in the face of rebellious attitude of some judges of the Supreme Court. Carles Puigdemont protests on Twitter. Yeah, you did embezzlement, dude. It has nothing to do with what you stand for. According to the Spanish press, citing police sources, the independence leader could be arrested before he reaches Parliament. On Friday, August 2nd, in an open letter published online, the person concerned said he was prepared for this eventuality. If they succeed in arresting me, I imagine what awaits me, and I know what I have to do. Get a lawyer, because you committed embezzlement. If you were arrested, the vote could be postponed. The Secretary General of Junts per Catalunya, Jordi Turull, has in any case promised that he would ask for his suspension if he were questioned. A spokesperson for the Republican left of Catalonia, a member of the coalition that also includes the Socialists, and which at this stage has the majority to elect Salvador Illa, Pedro Sanchez's former health minister, the presidency, also acknowledges that this could delay the vote. No president is elected by August 26th. New elections will have to be held in Catalonia. So hopefully nothing bad happens. He has to go there because of the vote, but also he's wanted for embezzlement. Why he isn't just serving his time or whatever, I don't know. I think he's just trying to get out of it by pretending it has anything to do with Catalonia when it doesn't have anything to do with that. He just embezzles some people. Wacky and weird politicians. On to yours.
Oh yes, more weird and wacky. I don't know if it's weird and wacky, but it's out of the ordinary. This is 19th century shipwreck filled with champagne bottles in Sweden won't allow anyone to sip. This is from Jan M. Olsen from AP. Copenhagen, Denmark. No one will be allowed to fish out any of the nearly 100 bottles of 19th century champagne and mineral water nestled in a shipwreck off southern Sweden without proper authorization, officials said Wednesday. Though the wreck's location has been known since 2016 and is registered in Sweden's National Antiquities Office Cultural Environment, it was on July 11th that the Polish scuba divers found the precious cargo. So everybody's exploring this shipwreck. The wreck, which sits about 58 meters or 190 feet deep off the coast of the southern Sweden county of Blekinge, was found by the divers while they were checking spots of interest about 37 kilometers south of the Swedish Baltic Sea and the island of Åland. Wine and water experts have quickly contacted the divers and been vying to carry out laboratory tests on the contents of the bottles, according to the divers' leader, Champange Statura. However, Swedish authorities have put their foot down and labeled the sunken ship as an ancient relic, which the country says requires a clear and strong protection to remain intact. You must not damage the ancient remains. Ancient? This is only from the 19th century. That doesn't make it ancient. Sorry. Anyway, you must not damage the ancient remains, which also includes taking items from the wreck, e.g. champagne bottles, without permission from the country. Magnus Johansson, a county official, told the Associated Press. The champagne bottles are a fantastically well-preserved find that gives us a snapshot of shipping life on board at the end of the 19th century. Had the wreck been before 1850, it would automatically have been listed as an ancient relic, local authorities said, but we have established that the cultural and historic values of the wreck were so high that it should be declared as an ancient relic. Daniel Tenlin, a county official in neighboring Kalmar. Statura, the diver, earlier said that it was believed that the cargo could have been on the way to Royal Table in Stockholm or Russia Tsar's residence in St. Petersburg when the ship sank sometime in the second half of the 19th century. So there you go. It's a short story, no resolution, but hands off the champagne, say Sweden. We don't want you to taste it or run any tests on it or anything, which to me, if you got 100 bottles, take one and sample it. I say you take one and sample it. I'm sorry. You got to find out if wine keeps that long and what it tastes like. I don't know. I'm not necessarily a wine connoisseur, but maybe it's really, really good. I don't know. Or it's horrible. Who knows, right? Either way, Sweden's like, no, it's more important that we not disturb it at all. Even though we can't come up with a good reason other than it's an antiquity. But it's not really an antiquity. It's only 100 and some years old. So there's your shipwreck story, and now into the chicken wing story. It's another short story. Chicken wings, advertised as boneless, can have bones. Ohio Supreme Court decides, which, to me, I'm sorry, you said boneless and it's got a bone. That's not truth in advertising, is it? Anyway, this is also from AP News. Michael Rubin Cam. Consumers cannot expect boneless chicken wings to actually be free of bones. A divided Ohio Supreme Court ruled Thursday, rejecting claims by a restaurant. This is actually updated from last week, so that was last Thursday. Rejecting claims by a restaurant patron who suffered serious medical complications from getting a bone stuck in his throat. Michael Berkheimer was dining with his wife and friends at a wing joint in Hamilton, Ohio, and he ordered the usual boneless wings with Parmesan garlic sauce when he felt a bite-sized piece of meat go down the wrong way. 3 days later, feverish and unable to keep food down, Berkheimer went to the emergency room where a doctor discovered a long, thin bone had torn his esophagus and caused an infection. Berkheimer sued the restaurant, Wings on Rockwood, and saying the restaurant failed to warn him that the so-called boneless wings, which are, of course, nuggets of boneless, skinless breast meat, could contain bones. The suit also named the supplier and the farm that produced the chicken, claiming all were negligent. In a 4-3 ruling, the Supreme Court said that Thursday that boneless wings refers to a cooking style and that the Berkheimer should have been on guard against bones since it's common knowledge that chickens have bones.
Yep.
The High Court sided with lower courts that it had dismissed Berkheimer's suit. A diner reading boneless wings on the menu would no more believe that the restaurant was warranting the absence of bones in the items than believe that the items were made from chicken wings, just as the person eating chicken fingers would know that he had not been served fingers. Justice D. Dieters wrote for the majority. No, that's complete horseshit. I'm sorry. It says boneless, and you got an infection from it. It's not severed chicken fingers. Oh, good, those are chicken fingers. Nobody thinks that chickens have fingers. When you say boneless, that means something. Not the chicken wings part. The chicken wings part is not the one in debate here. It's the boneless. Anyway, this judge is wrong. The dissenting justice called Dieter's reasoning utter jabberwocky, big long poem, and said a jury should have been allowed to decide whether a restaurant was negligent serving Berkheimer a piece of chicken that was advertised as boneless. The question that must be asked, does anyone really believe that the parents in this country who feed their young children boneless wings or chicken tenders or chicken nuggets or chicken fingers expect bones to be in a chicken? Of course they don't. Justice Michael P. Donnelly wrote in dissent, when they read the word boneless, they think that it means without bones, as do all sensible people. So, Supreme Court of Ohio getting this ruling completely wrong, 4-3. And again, it wasn't anybody in their family getting sick and almost dying. It was some rando. We don't care about him. We care about profits. Profits, damn it. We can call our food whatever we want to. We can call it horse nipples if we want to, by golly. And if it isn't horse nipples, that's the consumer's problem. Back to you.
So silly. Okay.
Yeah, what the hell is wrong? Again, another pro-business court just screwing the consumer. We can lie to them all we want. I don't know how you feel about it, but I just think this is an open shut case. But back to you.
For him, if he was a judge, I guess he should become a judge. I guess you still can.
Well, it ain't that easy. You, like, go to law school and get somebody to appoint you or run or something.
I guess that's true. Okay.
I don't mean to get worked up about it, but what are they thinking? Did they think boneless shouldn't mean boneless? I don't know. Anyway, sorry.
It's a very American thing, right? I'm gonna sue you for this. It's like, it's not a big deal, dude. It's not.
But but England, you can sue people for cussing at you and slandering your culture.
Can you?
Right?
Is that what we're?
Oh. Yeah, that's in the law. You can't defend. Yeah, you got the
hate crime law we covered
police telling people
earlier
how
in the
to.
year? Yeah.
Not to slur people.
Okay.
You've reported on it.
You can do that in America too. To be fair, hate crime is also illegal in America.
Nah, we got free speech though.
Free speech doesn't mean you can insult people in the street. It just means the government
doesn't, but there's a limit.
To insult people
Like I said, there's a limit.
Anyways,
England doesn't necessarily have it, like you said.
Speaking of the UK, ever wait for an email about your exam results and realize, oh, my exam didn't even happen? That's what happened in Scotland by Jodie Harrison on the Herald Scotland. Pupils and parents have been left in limbo after a fault hit the distribution of email exam results. Anxious teenagers across Scotland were due to receive their results. I guess it says today, but I think this was from the 6th of August. On the 6th of August, for National Higher and Advanced Higher exams, many received blank emails which should have contained pupils' grades. The emails were sent out to pupils who had signed up for a MySQA account, but while some have got their results, others have come through empty. The SQA helpline has told some parents there have been a few inquiries about empty emails and that the authority is looking into it. UCAS has confirmed that some pupils have received information about their university admission applications without knowing what their results were. You've been accepted to university with who knows what grades. An SQA spokesperson said the issue had now been resolved. Spokesperson said, "We have resolved a technical issue that impacted candidates who signed up to receive their results by email only using the MySQA service. Texts were not impacted, and vast majority of learners who signed up to MySQA received the results as expected. We apologize for any concern caused to learners who experienced a delay before receiving their MySQA email with their results attached." Congratulations to the thousands of learners across Scotland. Result certificates will arrive in the post today, plus your results guide. If you're signed up for MySQA, you'll receive a result text or email from 8 a.m. Well, some people didn't receive anything. SQA helpline has said results should be coming through within the next half hour for those who haven't had them yet. Herald education correspondent James McEnany, who was alerted to the situation early on the 6th of August, said the glitch was another shamble for the SQA, which was at one point due to be abolished by the Scottish government. Another strike, and they're going to be out. He said, all over the country, young people have woken up excited and anxious to find out their exam results, but for many of them, things have started off in just about the worst possible way. We don't know why yet, but it seems that lots and lots of students have received emails with a blank space where the results should be. Some people have also received blank text. Some people haven't received text at all. This doesn't seem to be a regional issue, because I've been told that students in the same house have had different experiences, with one receiving the results in an email, while other gets the blank version. Their correspondent added, "This looks very much like an issue with the mail merging function used to send out this sort of mass communication. It was absolutely humiliating for the SQA. You had one job, tell people what their exams are. Didn't even get that right. This, don't forget, is the organization that was so unreliable, that had so entirely lost the confidence of teachers and students, that the SNP decided it was going to be abolished. I have since rode back from that position, so now we're basically expecting a rebrand. But yet another result-day scandal will raise major questions about the competence of an organization that is charged with overseeing not just an important day in education calendar, but one of the most stressful days in a young lives of Scotland's students." Scottish Conservative Shadow Cabinet Secretary for Education Liam Kerr, MSP, said, "This chaotic and shambolic situation is the last thing people across Scotland need on results day. Receiving a blank email will only add added to pupils' worries about how they did in their exams. Successive SNP education secretaries have dithered and delayed on reforming the SQA for too long. Even then, their plans amount to sticking plaster rather than widespread changes the Scottish education requires. Those in charge of the SQA urgently be upfront to why many students have failed to receive their results and as they expected to, and ensure these errors are rectified as soon as possible for all those affected." Scottish Labour Education spokesperson Pam Duncan-Glancy said, "Young people across Scotland should have woken up this morning to exciting news. Instead, they have woken up to a new level of SKA chaos." Look at all these politicians just like, I also have an opinion on this. It's simply unacceptable that thousands of young people have been forced to undergo real anxiety due to SQA technical failure. She added, "The results speak for themselves. The poverty-related attainment gap is at its highest ever level, while attainment has also fallen for all. Higher pass rates are equal to lowest level on record. Pass rates is well below the pre-pandemic standard. Despite the best efforts of teachers, staff, and Scotland's young people, they are being forced to pay the price of 17 years of SNP failure and SQA chaos. Yes, it's all the SNP's fault for this. This one government. Young people in Scotland have been badly let down, and the First Minister and the Cabinet Secretary cannot avoid responsibility." Well, they were trying to turn themselves around. It just, they just suck. It didn't work. So, what a shame. Somerville, this is a commenter, Ian McNair. Somerville announced that the SQA would be cancelled with a new organization put in place without delay in a fit of pique to cover over Swiney's disastrous handling of education. Years later, nothing has been delivered except new education secretary who has continued in the same vein, doing nothing. But don't worry, it's all Westminster's fault. Yeah, it's easy to blame London. SQA has been fixed by Somerville, says W. Stevens in a reply. The new signs above the door have been ordered. Delivery times to be announced. The new headed paper has been ordered. No redundancy, and all existing staff will be rewarded for a smooth transition from incompetent SQA to our new shiny Qualifications Scotland. The anxious wait is over. How will the SQA screw up this year? Has been revealed. I guess Sean Duffy is following this story. Let's hope that's all we hear from this year. That's some comedy in the comments there. This is all we're going to hear from the SQA. So I guess it's been a very common problem for the last decade or so. And just another strike on their billet of messing it up. You have one job, dude. You can't even do that right. That's my story.
All right. Throw it over. All right, so I did one bone story about chicken bones. Here's another story about bones, but it's human bones. This is from the Smithsonian.com. Why were there so many skeletons hidden in Ben Franklin's basement? This is by Colin Schultz. Colin Schultz and Ellen Wexler. For nearly 2 decades leading up to the signing of the Declaration of Independence, Ben Franklin was a boarder in a house at 36 Craven Street in London. The future founding father left his English home and returned to America in 1775. 2 centuries later, bones from more than a dozen bodies were found in the basement, where they had been buried in a mysterious windowless room beneath the garden. The skeletons had gone unnoticed until the 1900s, when historians decided to turn Franklin's old haunt into a museum. Conservationists were carefully repairing the structure when they stumbled upon a human bone. From a 1 meter wide, 1 meter depth pit, over 1,200 pieces of bone were retrieved. According to the Benjamin Franklin House. They belonged to at least 15 people, some of whom had been children. The team called the coroner, but forensic investigations suggested that the bones were quite old. In fact, they had likely been buried in the home some 200 years ago, around the time Franklin resided in it. Franklin was a storied revolutionary and high-ranking Freemason, so it's easy to wonder what dark secrets he may have hidden in the basement chamber, but in truth, it turns out it isn't quite so dark. The most plausible explanation is not mass murder, but an anatomy school run by Benjamin Franklin's young friend and protege, William Houston, as the Guardian's May F. Kennedy wrote in 2003. Houston was an anatomist who began his career as a student of William Hunter, a famous obstetrician who studied anatomy. Following a dispute, Houston parted ways with his teacher and started his own anatomy school at 37 Craven, where his mother-in-law, Margaret Stevenson, was the landlady. Franklin just so happened to be one of the boarders. He is known to have developed a friendship with Stevenson's daughter, Polly, who had become Houston's wife. Later, he appears to have advocated for Houston professionally. Franklin thought Houston was a polite and promising young man. Marcia Bellisciano, director of the Benjamin Franklin House, told Discover magazine's Joshua Rapp Learn in 2023. He tried to mediate this dispute between Houston and William Hunter to give some of his preparations and samples back into his possession. In Franklin's time, the study of anatomy was an ethically ambiguous business, per Mental Floss Matt Soniak. Anatomy was still in its infancy, but the day's social and ethical mores frowned upon it. A steady supply of human bodies was hard to come by legally, so Houston, Hunter, and the field's other pioneers had to turn to grave robbing, either paying professional resurrection men, that's a cool name, resurrection men, to procure cadavers or digging them up themselves to get their hands on the specimens. Researchers think that 36 Craven was an irresistible spot for Houston to establish his own anatomy lab. The tenant was a trusted friend, the landlady was his mother-in-law, and he was flanked by convenient sources of corpses. Bodies could be smuggled from graveyards and delivered to the wharf on one end of the street, or snatched from the gallows at the other end. Hang a guy and throw him in your basement. There you go. When he was done with them, Houston simply buried whatever's left of the bodies in the basement rather than sneak them out for disposal elsewhere and risk getting caught or persecuted for dissecting and grave robbing. Franklin was probably aware of the legal studies going on in his building, although he likely wasn't involved himself. Still, it's difficult to imagine that a curious man that he was, he didn't sneak down and check out the proceedings at least once or twice. Franklin was a champion of science. He was supportive of young researchers and others that could exemplify his passion for knowledge and innovation. Bellisciano told Discover magazine he probably loved the idea of this scientific work would be going on. Ethics aside, conducting dissections was actually quite dangerous in the early 18th century. In 1774, a 34-year-old Houston died of sepsis, which he had contracted accidentally cutting himself during a procedure. The disaster shocked the anatomist's inner circle, including Franklin, who described the affair in a letter to his wife. Our family is in great distress, he wrote. Houston died last Sunday morning of a fever, which baffled the skill of our best physicians. He was an excellent young man, ingenious, industrious, useful, and beloved by all that knew him. So there you go. One of Ben Franklin's best friends in London was a bone saw guy. A cadaver snatcher.
And he didn't wash his hands.
A ghoulish grave robber. That's right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. ghoulish grave robber. By the way, I sent you a clip. I think you probably didn't know that, but making sure.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Dan. Back to you!
Back
with more
to
weirdness.
On our next story, let's talk about the culture. The culture of writing a book, not finishing it, dying, and then somebody decides to publish it 65 years after you've died. This is about Zora Neale Hurston. A story by Isabel Rodney on The Guardian. The novelist's final work, The Life of Herod the Great, will be published in January of 2025. A final novel by the late American writer and cultural anthropologist Zora Neale Hurston will be published for the first time next year. The author of Their Eyes Are Watching God was working on a sequel to her 1939 novel Moses, Man of the Mountain, when she died in 1960. That sequel, titled The Life of Herod the Great, will be available to buy in January 2025. Until recently, the manuscript had been in Hurston's archives at the University of Kansas, accessible only to scholars. It is unfinished and will be published in that state, alongside commentary from academic and literary critic Deborah Plant. The forthcoming title is a historical novel that tells the story of Herod the Great, a Judean king who lived during the 1st century BCE. According to the account in the Bible, Herod was responsible for the massacre of innocents, ordering the execution of all male children who were 2 years old or younger around Bethlehem. However, most Herod biographers do not believe this event occurred. Hurston paints the ruler in light of very different from his villainous portrayal in the New Testament, according to the book's UK publisher HQ, an imprint of HarperCollins. In Hurston's retelling, Herod is a forerunner of Christ, a religious and philosophical man who enriched Jewish culture and lived a life of valor and vision. The historical Herod seems to have been singled out by some deity especially endowed to attract the zigzag lightning of fate, Hurston wrote. The Life of Herod the Great will also feature Hurston's feelings from letters she sent to friends and associates about Herod's rise, reign, and his waning days. HQ Fiction's editorial director Claire Gordon described the long-awaited sequel as being nothing short of a masterpiece. Although it was written in the 1950s, its message still resounds with the world of today, Gordon said. As Zora herself writes in her foreword, it is history and history alone which will mature our judgment and prepare us to take right views. The Life of Herod the Great will be published on the 7th of January 2025 on what would have been Hurston's 134th birthday. Why? They did not explain. I wish they would have explained why, like they just decided to do it now. You know, what's the story? You know, I need more details, but I don't know who to ask. What's the story behind why they're releasing it? It's coming from the archives of Kansas University, where they're like, you know what? She doesn't get celebrated enough, so let's celebrate her by releasing her unfinished novel with commentary from academic and literary critic Deborah Plant, and that will be a great celebration of her life, because I don't know who she is, but to be fair, I don't know who a lot of book authors are. So,
good way to find out, though.
Who she is, we're going to read her Britannica biography. Zora Neale Hurston, born January 7th, 1891, in Nosaluga, Alabama, U.S., died January 28, 1960 in Fort Pierce, Florida, was an American folklorist and writer associated with the Harlem Renaissance, hey, I know what that is, who celebrated the African American culture of the rural South. Although Hurston claimed to be born in 1901 in Eatonville, Florida, she was in fact 10 years older and had moved with her family to Eatonville only as a small child. There, in the first incorporated all-black town in the country, she attended school until the age of 13. After the death of her mother in 1904, Hurston's home life became increasingly difficult, and at 16 she joined a traveling theatrical company, ending up in New York City during the Harlem Renaissance. She attended Howard University from 1921 to 1924, and in 1925 won a scholarship to Barnard College, where she studied anthropology under France Bose. She graduated from Barnard in 1928 and for 2 years pursued graduate studies in anthropology at Columbia University. Look at that, she went all the places, man. She also conducted field studies in folklore among African Americans in the South. Her trips were funded by folklorist Charlotte Mason, who was a patron of both Hurston and Langston Hughes. For a short time, Hurston was an amanuensis to novelist Fanny Hurst. I don't know, amanuensis. I don't know, that's a fancy ass word. What does that mean? Amanuensis means one who is employed to take dictation or copy a manuscript. Okay, so he worked for Fanny Hurst doing her manuscripts. In 1930, Hurston collaborated with Hughes on a play, never finished, titled Mulebone, a comedy of Negro life in the 3 acts, published posthumously in 1991. In 1934, she published her first novel, Jonah's Gourdvine, which was well received by critics for its portrayal of African American life uncluttered by stock figures of sentimentality. Mules and Men, a study of folkways among the African American population of Florida, followed in 1935. Their Eyes Were Watching God, 1937, a novel. Tell My Horse, 1938, a blend of travel writing and anthropological based on her investigations of voodoo in Haiti. And Moses, Man of the Mountain, 1939, a novel firmly established her as a major author. Pretty sure Their Eyes Were Watching God is a film too, wasn't it? I thought it was. I've definitely heard of Their Eyes Were Watching God before. Maybe we talked about it before. Because I'm sure we talked about her when it was on January 7th for her birthday. She was probably mentioned on Britannica because that's what you use for the...
Probably.
Yeah.
Well, if January 7th wasn't a weekend.
For a number of years, Hurston was on the faculty of North Carolina College of Negroes, now North Carolina Central University, in Durham. She also was on the staff of the Library of Congress. Thus, Tracks on a Road, 1942, an autobiography, is highly regarded. Her last book, Seraphim the Suwaini, a novel, appeared in 1948. Despite her early promise, by the time of her death in 1960, Hurston was little remembered by the general reading public. But there was a resurgence of interest in her work in the late 20th century. In addition to Mulebone, several other collections of her work were published posthumously. These include Spunk, The Selected Stories, The Complete Stories, 1995, Every Tongue Got to Confess, 2001, and a collection of folktales from the South. In 1995, the Library of America published a 2-volume set of Hurston's work in its series. In addition, Hurston's Barracoon, The Story of the Last Black Cargo, was released in 2018. Although completed in 1931, this nonfiction work was originally rejected by publishers because of its use of vernacular. It tells the story of Cudjoe Lewis, who was believed to be the last survivor of the final ship that brought enslaved Africans to the United States. Abraham X. Kendi adapted several folk tales collected by Hurston as books for children in the 2020s. And now you can add her unfinished last novel is going to be released on January 7th, 2025 for her 134th birthday. So check it out. Learn something new about what it's like to be an African American and what folk tales they were sharing around the campfires after they got completely taken away from their country that they were in to be slaves and brought down orally.
Makes it sound interesting for sure.
Yeah, orally brought down stories from all sorts of tribes, I'm sure, combined together into this conglomerate that is African American hood. So there's your culture segment. I hope you've been I just thought it was wacky that they're releasing a book 65 years after she died. But hey, now we know who she is because of that.
That's right. You gotta learn from the past. All right, so I guess we're on to this day in history.
Yep.
I'm a little slow. Is it my story?
You can go.
I didn't get a throw over. Huh?
You can go.
Oh, okay. Didn't feel like there'd been a back to you, like a throwback.
Back to you on the
all right.
Back to the U.S.
There you go. A throw over. I need a throw over. I'm old and slow. I need all the assistance I can get. In this day in history, 1560, Hungarian Countess Elizabeth Bathory, who purportedly tortured and murdered hundreds of young women in the 16th and 17th century, was born. Well, you suck. Why are we remembering her birthday? Oh, we got to remember all these horrible people's birthdays for some reason. Okay. 1780. Why don't we remember the day she was executed or whatever eventually happened to her? That would have been a day to celebrate, you know? In 1782, George Washington ordered the creation of the first U.S. military decoration, the Badge of Military Merit, which is today called the Purple Heart, which was later awarded to 3 Revolutionary War soldiers for bravery in action. So at some point, the Purple Heart became a medal you gave to wounded in action instead of just bravery. You didn't have to be brave, you just had to be wounded. 1819, a group of South American insurgents under Simón Bolívar defeated Spanish forces in the Battle of Boyaca. I'm having a dyslexic moment here. Which freed New Grenada, Colombia, and Venezuela from Spanish control. So, this day in history, Bolívar defeated the Spanish. 1876, dancer and courtesan Mata Hari, whose name became synonym for the seductive female spy, was born in Leeuwarden, Netherlands.
Leeuwarden.
Hope I said that right. Leeuwarden.
Leeuwarden.
I'll say it again.
Leeuwarden.
I think I said Leeuwarden, didn't I?
It's the
Okay.
EU. EU. Leeuwarden. It's fine. I said it
Thank you,
right.
pronunciation guide.
Well, I've learned how to speak Dutch. That's why I know.
That's right. Leeuwarden.
Leeuwarden.
In 1888, the commemorating more scumbags. Here we are just commemorating scumbags for some reason. The first
It's
of
wacky,
the
weird
murders
scumbag
of
day.
Sir Madi Harry was a scumbag. Elizabeth Bathory was. And here's another one. The first of the murders committed by Jack the Ripper took place in London's East End on this day in 1888. Never caught Jack the Ripper.
Was he ever even real?
1932.
No one knows.
How did he even know his name was Jack? Which is what I want to know. Anyway. 1932, Abebe Bikila, an Ethiopian runner, who was the first athlete to win 2 Olympic marathons, was born in Mont. It must be a town in Ethiopia. 1948, at the Olympics in London, track and field athlete Fanny Blankers-Cohen, who was pregnant with her third child, helped the Dutch team win the 4x100 relay, becoming the first woman to capture 4 gold medals in a single games. She earlier had won the 100 meters, 200 meters, and the 80-meter hurdles while pregnant.
Wow.
Okay,
Can't
there's
stop
a
her.
feat for you.
Well, she was
Small
probably
biles,
first,
apparently.
she's probably only in her first trimester. That doesn't do much to you except make you sick.
Well, you could miscarry.
But if it was a third
Also small
trimester, that
biles,
would have been
apparently.
like, what the hell? All that extra weight, and you just ran with it.
The old belly sticking out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be.
You have it
That
strapped
would be
down
something.
with like cellophane or
Wait,
something.
she has extra ballast. She has extra ballast for the long jump. You know. Yeah.
She's cheating. She has a physical.
Hormone imbalance.
Yeah, she's better
Yeah,
than
that's
us.
what
'Cause
it
she's
is.
pregnant.
Yeah.
That's not fair.
She's angrier than the rest of you. There you go. Far angrier than the rest of you. Yeah, apparently Simone Biles is also pregnant, so.
Yeah, but some of them, they're like early in
This
it,
was-
right? So.
Right. And of course, it was Serena Williams won the Australian Open while I think 3 months pregnant.
Yeah,
So,
she was. I remember her being visually
You
pregnant.
can-
I remember that much. Yeah.
Yeah. 1957, Oliver Hardy, member of Laurel and Hardy, the first great Hollywood motion picture comedy team, died in North Hollywood, California. In 1960, Côte d'Ivoire gained independence from France. However, it did not become easier to pronounce. I don't know how to pronounce this. Côte. Let's do the.
Is it the thing where they
Google
have
pronunciation
the
guide.
carrot over the O?
Oh yeah, it's got the carrot over the O,
Yeah. Well,
which makes the E
does it
long,
have an
or
accent over the
makes
E?
it another syllable or something. There's nothing over the E.
Yeah, so then it's
There's a
silent.
D apostrophe.
Côte d'Amour? Something?
Yeah. Now let's Google it, man.
What
Whoops.
does the AI voice
I just
tell
got
us?
to add in my. Let's see what Google Translate tells us. Sorry, folks, we got to do some house cleaning here.
American on scene, American on scene. Even though we have a lot of borrow words from French, like bureau.
That means the Ivory Coast. The Ivory Coast. That's what it's called.
The Ivory Coast. Okay.
All right. Right. That's all that means. And it's pronounced Côte d'Ivoire. Côte d'Ivoire. Côte d'Ivoire is a female voice in my ear. Côte d'Ivoire was founded as a former French colony, is now its own country. Ivory Coast, as we call it in English.
Yeah,
in 1974, French-born.
The whole article's in English, and they're like, we're going to use the French name so you can guess where we're talking about.
Well, because it didn't have a name until, I don't know.
Yeah.
Britannica confuses me. They don't know what year it is half the time. So, French-born in 1974, French-born Philippe Petit walked on a high wire between the newly built Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York City, about 1,350 feet or 408. Well, we know how tall the World Trade Center is, or was. He was arrested, but the charges were later dismissed. So there's your weird Wednesday feat for the day in 1974. I wonder if it was actually a Wednesday also, right? But that was Philippe Petit. I remember this, quite frankly. I was like, cool, what a cool name, Philippe Petit. Another French name, but I can pronounce that one. 1978, U.S. President Jimmy Carter declared federal health emergency in Love Canal, a neighborhood in Niagara Falls, New York, following the leakage of toxic chemicals buried under the community. It was the worst environmental disaster involving chemical waste in U.S. history. Again, don't trust corporations. They will just bury waste and pretend it don't exist just so they can keep their bottom line going. And Love Canal was condemned in this year, 1978, and all those people had to be relocated, given money to relocate. 2007, American baseball player Barry Bonds hit his 756th career home run, breaking the record set by Hank Aaron. Although Frank Aaron's Negro League stats, we have to do another Google here, because we reported earlier this year, Major League Baseball is including the Negro League stats. So let's see if Hank Aaron had any Negro League stats. I know he played at least 2 seasons. He had to hit a couple of home runs. He had 5 home runs and 33 RBI in the Negro League. So, Hank Aaron's actual record, which Barry Bonds, of course, later broke because he didn't retire right after this home run. So, Hank Aaron's actual record is 760 home runs. So, Barry Bonds didn't actually break it on this day. He broke it when he hit, 6 more home runs, or 5 more. In 2015, on this day, American golfer Louise Suggs, a pioneer of women's golf who co-founded or confounded the Ladies Professional Golf Association and won 61 career LPGA tournaments, died at the age of 91 on this day in 2015. Our featured event, Japanese airfield in Guadalcanal seized by Allies. In the Allies' first major offensive of the Pacific Theater during World War II, U.S. Marines on this day in 1942 landed on Guadalcanal and captured the airfield from Japan, sparking a battle that lasted some 6 months. So the Battle of Guadalcanal was raging. This day in 1942. Other birthdays today, we have a feature biography. Emil Nolde, German artist, born August 7th, 1867 in Nolde, Germany, or Nold, Germany. And he died April 15th, 1956 at the age of 88 in Seebuhl, Germany. Man, I want to go back to Germany. What about you? What do you think? I kind of liked it there. Mata Hari's birthday today. We already covered that. Bibi Bikila, Ethiopian athlete, we covered that. David Duchovny's birthday, the guy from the X-Files. American actor, born in 1960, so happy 64th birthday to David Duchovny from the X-Files. Charlize Theron's birthday today. She was born in 1975. She's 15 years younger than David Duchovny, really? It doesn't seem like they would be that different in age, but Charlize Theron, South African born actress, turning almost 50. She's 49 today. And Sidney Crosby, Canadian ice hockey player, turns a or 37 today. He was born in 1987. So, happy birthday to Sidney Crosby. And what is it, National Day today? It is National Lighthouse Day. Well, I love the lighthouses. Lighthouses are cool. National Sea Serpent Day, we covered already. National Raspberries and Cream Day. Raspberries. All my raspberries have gone past ripe. They're no longer ripe. It's past the season. It's more like blueberry season now. And it's National Purple Heart Day, as Purple Heart was founded by George Washington on this day. So those are your days for today, August 7th, 2024, on Before Raspberries and Cream.
I never think I've ever had raspberries with cream. I've always just ate them fresh off the bush, huh?
Oh, it's best.
Yeah, why would I stop by and
anything
get
with
some
cream, man?
Yeah.
You don't even need sugar because cream is sweet. Like cream separated by
Exactly.
itself is already sweet.
Yeah, you already got everything going. Well, this has been Alison here from the Netherlands, who is ready for 13 themes tomorrow on Thursdays 13 on Before Coffee. I hope you are too. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and of course turn on those notifications so you know when we're going live and when we post a video. I hope to see you tomorrow. Take care out there, and let's look at our mic drop moment.
Donald Trump's not fighting for you or your family.
Ooh, that's quiet.
He never sat at that kitchen table like the one I grew up at, wondering how we were going to pay the bills. He sat at his country club up in Mar-a-Lago, wondering how he can cut taxes for his rich friends. And I got to tell you, his running mate
Why
shares
does she
his
look
dangerous
behind
and
him
backward
like
agenda
that,
for
like
this
she's
country.
from his mom or something?
J.D. Vance literally wrote the foreword for the architect of the Project 2025 agenda. Like all regular people I grew up with in the heartland, J.D. studied at Yale, had his career funded by Silicon Valley billionaires.
Yeah, don't forget,
and then
he's
wrote
not a
bestseller
freaking
trashing
farmer,
that
is he?
community.
No.
Come on. That's not what middle America is. And I got to tell you, I can't wait to debate the guy.
He's very charismatic, which is what you need to be a politician, to be fair. You're doing it wrong if you're not charismatic.
And he's a football coach.
Of course, he knows how to give a
He knows how to
speech.
get people going.
Yeah,
He took over a winless team and won the state championship.
that's pretty impressive.
That is, if
Or was he
he's
in it?
willing to get off the couch and show up. So,
There's your mic drop.
see what I did there?
The freaking.
Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.